So if you think that you don't like the 12 steps, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is you actually do like the 12 steps. And the reason I know that is because you already worked all 12 steps. It is true. It's 100% true. If you're in recovery from addiction or thinking about getting into recovery from addiction, you worked the steps at one point in your life, probably in junior high, because that's when most addictions get started. So at some point when you were 12 or 13, you were unhappy and having a hard time, and your life was unmanageable. And that's pretty much a rule for 12 and 13-year-olds. Their life is unmanageable because they're in a process called individuation, where they're stepping away from their parents and away from their family system up until the age of 12. When you start moving towards sexual maturity, up until that part, when puberty hits, you're really just trying to focus on how to fit in with your family. Who am I in this family? Who am I? That's your whole world, is just your nuclear family, maybe one or two friends in grade school. But who and how you are, that whole identity piece is formed up until that point. And then once you hit sexual maturity, you start to try to figure out who you are in the world at large. And that's a bigger question. So you start to look toward your peers. And in the beginning, it's really sloppy and messy and really unpleasant. So that's what junior high school is about. If you remember junior high, it's not a pleasant time to be alive as a kid for most people. Once in a while, if you're really good looking, maybe junior high worked out well for you. I did not have that gift at all. So anyway, at some point around 12 or 13, your life's unmanageable and you decide that there's nothing you can do about it. You're powerless over the fact that your life is a disaster. And then someone introduces you to some sort of substance. Usually it's alcohol, sometimes marijuana. If you grew up in a rough neighborhood, maybe you even got some actually good drugs around this age, but most of the time it's alcohol. And so what happens is you take step two, which is coming to believe that alcohol, in the 12 steps, it's a power greater than self, but coming to believe that alcohol can make me fit in and I can be somebody with booze. And then you take step three. I turn my will and my life over to the care of alcohol. And then you take step four. I'm going to take a searching and fearless moral inventory of alcohol and all the cool stuff that it does for me. Let's see, it makes me more popular because I can talk to everybody. I'm socially acceptable. It makes me not feel depressed. It makes me not feel anxious. This thing's a winner. So I'm going to take a searching and fearless moral inventory of all the things that alcohol does for my personality. And at the end of the day, I'm going to definitely admit to myself and anybody else who is safe and kind of won't get in my way that alcohol is the way to go. Then I'm going to take step 6 and step 7. If you're familiar with the steps, step 6 and 7 are where I really look at my character defects, the things that stand in the way of me and having alcohol. Okay, so I'm going to really think about like what's getting in the way of alcohol. Then I'm going to make a list of everybody in my life who might get me alcohol or who might like to drink with me, and I'm going to reach out to those people and I'm going to take good care of them. So that's steps 8 and 9. I'm going to make a commitment to really reconcile anything that might come between us, especially if you have alcohol for me, that could possibly show up. Step 10 is on a daily basis, really think about, what I have done to move me closer to alcohol that day. Step 11 talks about prayer and meditation. So when you pray about something, that's when you think about it. And meditating on something is to contemplate it and to really kind of hold it in mind. And again, if you're really any good at being an addict, right about the time you started getting high or getting intoxicated or inebriated, you did that. You really got to a point where it was occupying a pretty significant amount of your head space most of the time. And then step 12 is carry the message. And I don't know a single person who's an addict who hasn't carried the joy of their addiction and all that it has to offer to other people, to their friends. Most of us who got introduced to addiction got introduced through our friends or family members and through people who wanted to bring it to us. So that's the good news. You already worked the steps. When you were 12 or 13, maybe a couple of you were latecomers. I had a couple clients who 15, 16. Once in a while, one time I had a guy who was 22, which I was pretty impressed by. He was very religious. And so he waited to drink until he was 21 and then immediately became addicted, not immediately, but relatively shortly thereafter, became addicted to it. The bad news is, so I said there's good news and bad news. The bad news is the higher power you picked probably isn't going to work well. One of the things that we discover in counseling for addiction and everything else really is that everybody has a higher power. Everybody has something like alcohol, whether it's money, sex, people. Sometimes it's actually just a higher power. No matter what it is, the higher power you pick really determines the course and the quality of your life. And if you pick alcohol for a higher power, well, the quality of your life is going to suffer pretty significantly. And that's one of the reasons why the steps might be something worth reconsidering if you had perhaps thought that they weren't for you. Hopefully this discussion will help you move in a different direction. Thanks for tuning in today.